Amanda West's trial moved quickly through the Nigerian judicial system. With the overwhelming evidence, the security footage, Tina's testimony, the medical reports detailing the severity of her injuries, and even Amanda's own partial confession during her arrest, the case was straightforward. Amanda's lawyer tried every defense he could think of: temporary insanity, extreme emotional distress, provocation. He painted Amanda as a woman scorned, driven to a moment of madness by years of unrequited love and workplace stress. But the prosecutor demolished every argument. This wasn't a moment of passion, the prosecutor told the judge during the hearing. This was a sustained, brutal attack on a vulnerable pregnant woman. Miss West had multiple opportunities to stop. Multiple opportunities to help after Miss Adeyemi lost consciousness. Instead, she chose to walk away and leave her to die. She went to the bathroom and calmly washed her hands while a woman and her unborn child were dying just meters away. That's not insanity. That's not emotional distress. That's cold, calculated cruelty. The judge, a stern older woman who had clearly seen too many cases of the powerful preying on the vulnerable, agreed completely. Miss West, the judge said, looking down at Amanda standing in the dock, you held a position of authority and privilege. You had education, wealth, opportunity, and you used all of that to brutally assault a woman whose only crime was existing in a space you felt was too good for her. You nearly killed her. You nearly killed her unborn child, and then you walked away without a shred of remorse or human decency. Amanda stood there, her expensive lawyer beside her, looking nothing like the polished, confident woman who had walked into Peter's office that morning. She looked smaller now, defeated, the weight of her actions finally crushing her. I sentence you to 6 months imprisonment, the judge declared. Additionally, 5 years probation upon release, mandatory anger management counseling, community service, and a permanent restraining order. You are to remain at least 500 meters away from Miss Tina Adeyemi at all times. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Amanda whispered. 6 months. Peter, sitting in the gallery, thought it wasn't nearly enough for what she'd done. But it was something. It was justice, however imperfect. As the guards led Amanda away to begin her sentence, she looked back one time at Peter sitting in the courtroom. Their eyes met for a brief second. Peter saw no hatred there anymore, just emptiness, regret, the ruins of a life destroyed by obsession and cruelty. Then she was gone. Peter left the courthouse and drove straight to the hospital. Tina needed to know that it was over, that she was safe, that Amanda couldn't hurt her anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, Peter visited Tina and Priscilla in the hospital every single day, sometimes twice a day, once in the morning before work, once in the evening after. He'd bring things, practical things at first, baby supplies that Tina would need when she was discharged, diapers, baby clothes, bottles, formula, a proper baby bag with compartments for everything. You don't have to keep doing this, Tina would protest every time, but her eyes would fill with grateful tears. I want to, Peter would say simply, and he did want to. More than he'd ever wanted anything. He'd hold Priscilla while Tina ate her meals. He'd learned quickly how to support her tiny head, how to rock her gently when she fussed, how to make funny faces that sometimes, just sometimes, would make her stop and stare at him with those huge, solemn baby eyes. You're good with her, Tina observed one evening, watching Peter cradle Priscilla with surprising confidence for someone who'd never been around babies. She's easy to love, Peter said, looking down at the tiny girl sleeping peacefully in his arms. She's perfect. They'd talk during those visits, long conversations about everything and nothing. Tina told him more about her past, about David and the betrayal, about the 8 years she'd poured into data vision technologies, about the desperate job hunt, about Mrs. Tayo's unexpected kindness. "I was a data analyst," Tina said one evening, a note of wistfulness in her voice. "For 8 years, I built systems, wrote algorithms, managed teams, and then suddenly I was scrubbing toilets in the very building where my code was running on every computer." Peter listened, his heart aching for everything she'd lost, everything she'd endured, and an idea began forming in his mind. On the day Tina was discharged, 2.5 weeks after the attack, Peter insisted on driving her home himself, not in a company car, in his personal vehicle, with his driver taking the day off. "You really don't have to do all this," Tina said as Peter carefully installed the infant car seat he'd purchased for Priscilla. "I know," Peter said, making sure the straps were secure, "but I want to make sure you both get home safely." Laura was waiting at the apartment when they arrived, having left work early to prepare. She'd cleaned everything, prepared food, made sure Priscilla's corner was set up with all the supplies Peter had sent over the previous weeks. When Peter carried Tina's hospital bag up the stairs and saw the apartment, the cramped space, the worn furniture, the peeling paint, his heart clenched. This was where Tina lived, where she'd bring Priscilla home to. It was clean but run down, the kind of place people lived when they had no other choice. "Thank you for everything," Tina said at the door, holding Priscilla, looking exhausted but happy to be home. "I don't know how I can ever repay you for your kindness." "You don't need to repay me," Peter said. "Just take care of yourself and Priscilla." "That's enough." As he turned to leave, he noticed the kitchen faucet dripping, the loose door handle, the flickering light in the hallway. "Tina," he said, turning back, "would you mind if I fixed a few things around here? I noticed some repairs that need doing, and I'm actually pretty handy with tools." "Oh, you really don't have to." "I want to," Peter interrupted gently. "Besides, it won't take long. Just let me help, please." Tina glanced at Laura, who was smirking knowingly in the background. "Okay," Tina said finally, "if you really don't mind." Peter came back the next day, Saturday, with a toolbox. He spent hours fixing everything he could find: the dripping faucet, the running toilet, the loose door handles, the flickering lights, the wobbly table. He installed proper shelves for Priscilla's things, fixed the window that wouldn't close properly, patched a hole in the wall. Laura watched him work with barely concealed amusement, occasionally bringing him water or offering commentary. "You know," Laura said casually while Peter was on his back under the kitchen sink, "most security staff don't drive Mercedes or wear Patek Philippe watches." Peter froze. He'd forgotten to take off his watch. Stupid. Relax," Laura said with a laugh. "Your secret's safe with me. Though I don't know why you're lying to her about who you are. She's going to find out eventually." "I know," Peter admitted, sitting up. I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable around me. Didn't want her to see me as her boss or someone with power over her. I wanted to just be Peter, just a guy helping someone who needed help." Laura studied him for a long moment. "You're in love with her, aren't you?" "I barely know her," Peter protested. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't entirely true. He'd spent hours talking with Tina over the past 2 weeks. He knew about her dreams, her fears, her strength, her kindness, despite everything she'd suffered. "You love her," Laura repeated with certainty. "And honestly, I think that's beautiful. Just don't lie to her too long, okay? She's been lied to enough. When you tell her the truth, make sure it's you who tells her, not someone else, not by accident, you." "I will," Peter promised. "Soon. I just need to find the right time." Over the following weeks, Peter became a constant presence in their lives. He'd visit several times a week, always bringing something. Groceries so Tina didn't have to go out with a newborn, prepared meals from good restaurants, more baby supplies as needs arose. He'd hold Priscilla for hours, giving Tina a chance to shower or nap, or just sit without a baby attached to her. He'd do dishes, help with laundry, whatever needed doing. One evening, about a month after Tina had been discharged, Laura pulled Tina aside into the bedroom for a serious conversation. "Okay, we need to talk," Laura said, arms crossed but smiling. "About what?" Tina asked, though she suspected she knew. "About Peter," Laura said. "That man is completely, utterly, head over heels in love with you." "Don't be ridiculous," Tina said, but her face flushed. "He's just being kind. He's a good person who helps someone in need." "Tina," Laura said, shaking her head with exasperation. "Open your eyes. That man comes here 4-5 times a week. He brings you groceries. He fixed our entire apartment. Everything. He holds Priscilla like she's his own daughter. He looks at you like you hung the moon and all the stars in the sky. That's not just being kind. That's a man in love. Even if that were true, which it's not, why would someone like him want someone like me?" Tina argued, her voice dropping. "I'm a single mother, a cleaner. I have nothing to offer. I have baggage and complications and—" "Stop," Laura interrupted firmly. "Just stop. You have everything to offer. You're brilliant. You built an entire tech company from scratch. You're kind, hardworking, beautiful, strong. Any man would be lucky to have you. And Peter clearly knows that. He sees your worth even if you don't." "I can't," Tina said, her voice breaking slightly. "Laura, I can't go through that again. David destroyed me, completely destroyed me. I can't risk my heart again. I can't risk Priscilla's stability. What if Peter leaves too? What if he gets bored? What if he doesn't?" Laura interrupted gently. "What if he's exactly what you and Priscilla need? What if this is your second chance at happiness? Are you really going to let fear rob you of that?" Tina didn't have an answer, but Laura's words stayed with her, echoing in her mind every time Peter visited, every time she caught him looking at her with those warm, caring eyes, every time he made Priscilla laugh with his silly voices and faces. Meanwhile, Peter was wrestling with his own fears. He needed to tell Tina the truth about who he was. The lie had gone on too long already. But every time he tried to work up the courage, he'd imagine the hurt and betrayal in her eyes when she learned he'd been lying for weeks. He was trapped in a lie of his own making, and he didn't know how to escape it without losing everything. About 6 weeks after Priscilla's birth, Peter and Tina were sitting on Laura's worn couch while Priscilla slept in her bassinet nearby. Laura had conveniently remembered she had evening plans with friends and left them alone. They'd been talking for hours about everything: childhood memories, favorite foods, dreams for the future. The conversation was easy, comfortable, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. "Can I ask you something?" Peter said, his tone becoming more serious. "Of course." "What happened to you, Tina? I mean, before you became a cleaner. How did you end up in that position when you're clearly so much more than that?" Tina was quiet for a long moment, debating how much to share, but something about Peter made her feel safe, made her want to open up. So she told him everything. About meeting David at university, about building data vision technologies together for 8 years, about the betrayal and abandonment, about discovering she was pregnant, about the desperate job search that led nowhere. "I was a data analyst," Tina said, and Peter could hear both pride and pain in her voice. For 8 years, I built systems from scratch, wrote complex algorithms, managed development teams. I helped build a company that sold for millions. And then suddenly, at 37 and pregnant, nobody would hire me. Too old, too expensive, too pregnant. So I became a cleaner at the very company that bought my life's work. Peter felt anger rising in him, not at Tina, but at a system that had failed her so completely, at every company that had rejected her, at David who had stolen her work and abandoned her. "Do you still have your portfolio?" Peter asked carefully. "Your work samples, code, anything like that?" Tina looked surprised. "I think so, yes, somewhere on my old laptop. Why?" "Because," Peter said, leaning forward, choosing his words carefully, "I have some connections in the tech industry." Good connections. Alpha King is always looking for talented data analysts. If you'd be willing to share your portfolio with me, I could pass it along to the right people. See if there are any openings. "You'd do that?" Tina's eyes widened with hope she was almost afraid to feel. "But I'm a cleaner there. They know me as a cleaner. Why would they?" "Because you're not just a cleaner," Peter interrupted firmly. "You're a brilliant data analyst who was forced into that position by circumstances beyond your control. Your skills, your experience, those haven't disappeared just because you've been mopping floors for a few months. Let me help you, Tina. Let me help you get back to doing what you were meant to do." "I don't know what to say," Tina whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Say yes. Say you'll put together your portfolio and let me try to help." "Yes," Tina said, wiping her eyes. "Yes, okay, I'll do it. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for believing in me when nobody else would." That night, after Peter left, Tina pulled out her old laptop, the one she'd used to build data vision technologies. She spent hours going through old files, pulling together her best work. Code samples, system architecture diagrams, case studies of complex problems she'd solved, algorithms she'd designed. By the time she finished, it was 3 a.m., but she had a portfolio she was genuinely proud of. She sent it to Peter's email with a message. "Here's my portfolio. Thank you for even being willing to look at it. You've already done so much for me. I don't know how to thank you enough." Peter received the email at 3:17 a.m. He was still awake, working late in his home office in his Ikoyi penthouse, when the notification popped up. He opened the portfolio and started reading. By page 3, he was impressed. By page 10, he was amazed. By the time he finished reading everything 2 hours later, he was absolutely certain. Tina was brilliant, genuinely, exceptionally brilliant. Her code was elegant, efficient, commenting was clear. Her solutions were creative yet practical. Her system designs were sophisticated yet maintainable. She had a rare gift, the ability to see complex problems clearly and solve them simply. She was exactly the kind of talent Alpha King desperately needed, exactly the kind of person he'd been trying to recruit for the data analytics department for months. And she'd been cleaning toilets in his building. Peter felt sick with the waste of it all, angry at himself for not somehow knowing sooner, for not discovering her talent before she'd been reduced to scrubbing floors. But he could fix this now, right now. Peter spent the next hour crafting an official job offer. He pulled up the salary scales for senior data analyst. 3.8 naira per year was the standard for someone with her experience, more than triple what she was making as a cleaner, enough to change her and Priscilla's life completely. He added full benefits, comprehensive health insurance that would cover her and Priscilla, pension contributions, 4 weeks annual leave, flexible work-from-home options for new mothers. subsidized childcare in the building's daycare facility. He typed it all up as an official offer letter from Alpha King's HR department, backdated the approval process to make it look like it had gone through normal recruitment channels, and sent it from the HR email address at 5:30 a.m. Then he sent Tina a personal text. Just spoke to my contact in the tech department. Check your email. When Tina woke up at 6 a.m. to feed Priscilla, she checked her phone out of habit. She saw Peter's text first and smiled. Then she saw the email notification from Alpha King HR. Her hand started shaking. With trembling fingers, she opened the email and started reading. Dear Miss Adeyemi, we are pleased to offer you the position of Senior Data Analyst at Alpha King Conglomerate. Tina read it once, twice, 3 times. Certain she was misunderstanding, certain this was a mistake, certain she was still asleep and dreaming. 3.8 million naira, full benefits, Senior Data Analyst, starting in 2 weeks to give her time to arrange childcare. She burst into tears, sobbing so loudly that Laura came running from her bedroom in panic, thinking something was wrong with the baby. What happened? Is Priscilla okay? Laura asked frantically. I got a job, Tina sobbed, shoving her phone at Laura with shaking hands. A real job. Peter got me a job. Look! Laura read the email and her eyes went wide as saucers. Oh my God, Tina. This is amazing. This is incredible. She stopped, her eyes narrowing slightly as she read more carefully. Wait, this is from Alpha King, where you work, where Peter works, in security. He said he had connections, Tina said, still crying happy tears. He said he could help. I never imagined. Laura looked at her friend, understanding dawning. Peter wasn't just well-connected. Peter was the connection. But she'd promised to let him tell Tina himself in his own time. This is wonderful, Laura said, pulling Tina into a tight hug. You deserve this. You deserve all of this and more. Tina immediately called Peter, not caring that it was only 6:30 in the morning. Hello? Peter answered, sounding amused despite the early hour. I see you got the email. Peter? Tina was crying so hard she could barely speak. How did you do this? This is life-changing. This is everything. How did you convince them? Your portfolio convinced them, Peter said, which was technically true. He'd been thoroughly convinced by it. You're incredibly talented, Tina. They'd be crazy not to hire you. This is what you deserve, what you've always deserved. I can't believe this is real, Tina whispered. After months and months of rejection, of being told I was too old, too pregnant, too everything, and someone finally sees my worth. I've always seen your worth, Peter said softly, meaning it with every fiber of his being. From the moment I met you. You're brilliant, Tina. You're strong and kind and talented. Never doubt that. There was a moment of charged silence on the line, both of them feeling the weight of those words, the meaning beneath them, the feelings growing between them that neither was quite ready to name. Thank you, Tina said finally, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, Peter said. Just be happy. That's all I want, for you and Priscilla to be happy and safe and thriving. That's enough. That evening, they celebrated. Peter brought champagne, sparkling juice for Tina since she was still nursing, and expensive takeout from Tina's favorite restaurant. Laura joined them, and they toasted to new beginnings, to second chances, to hope. Priscilla slept peacefully in her bassinet through the celebration, occasionally making little baby sounds that made all 3 adults stop and smile. Peter looked at them, at Tina laughing with her best friend, at baby Priscilla sleeping peacefully, at this little makeshift family in this cramped apartment, and thought, this is what home feels like. This is what happiness feels like. He was falling in love with both of them, with Tina and her strength and her brilliant mind and the way she lit up when she smiled, with Priscilla and her tiny fingers that would grip his thumb and her solemn baby eyes and the way she seemed to calm down whenever he held her. But he still hadn't told Tina the truth about who he was, and that lie sat between them like a ticking bomb, growing more dangerous with each passing day. I'll tell her soon, Peter promised himself, after she starts the new job, after she's settled, after things are stable. Then I'll tell her everything. But soon kept getting pushed back, and the lie kept growing bigger. Tina started her new position as senior data analyst on a Monday morning. She woke up at 6 a.m., much more reasonable than the 4:30 a.m. wake-ups for cleaning, fed Priscilla, got dressed in one of the professional outfits Peter had quietly left for her, claiming he'd found them on sale, and dropped Priscilla at the company's subsidized daycare facility. Then she took the elevator, not the service elevator this time, but the main employee elevator, up to the 5th floor. The data analytics department, the place where she'd once mopped floors and emptied bins, where she'd seen her own stolen code running under someone else's name, but now she walked in as senior data analyst Tina Adeyemi. She had her own desk, her own computer with dual monitors, her own nameplate that read, Tina Adeyemi, senior data analyst. She stood there staring at that nameplate for a full minute, tears in her eyes, hardly able to believe this was real. Miss Adeyemi? Tina turned to see a woman in her 50s approaching, professional, friendly, wearing glasses and carrying a tablet. I'm Dr. Reeves, head of the data analytics department. Welcome to the team. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you, Ma, Tina said, still in slight disbelief. I'm excited to be here. Your portfolio was exceptional, Dr. Reeves continued as she showed Tina to her desk. The algorithms you designed, the problems you solved, truly impressive work. We've been needing someone with your specific skill set for months. You're exactly what this team needs. Tina's new colleagues were friendly and welcoming. They introduced themselves, showed her around, explained their current projects. Nobody looked at her like she was the pregnant cleaner who used to scrub their toilets. Nobody knew. To them, she was just a talented new hire. For the first time in almost a year, Tina felt like herself again, like she mattered, like she had value beyond her ability to mop floors and scrub toilets. Peter, meanwhile, was careful. He made sure to time his visits to Tina's apartment for after hours, when there was no chance of running into her at the office. He didn't want her to accidentally discover his real position before he had a chance to tell her properly. But the lie was eating at him. Every time Tina talked excitedly about her new job, about her projects, about how grateful she was to Peter's connection who hired her, he felt the guilt dig deeper. Tell her, his conscience screamed. Tell her now before it's too late, before she finds out from someone else, before this explodes in your face. But fear kept him silent. Fear that she'd feel betrayed. Fear that she'd think he'd been playing some kind of game with her, manipulating her. Fear that she'd pull away and he'd lose her and Priscilla both. So he kept quiet, kept lying, kept digging himself deeper into a hole he didn't know how to escape. And with every passing day, the truth became harder to tell. 6 months after her sentencing, Amanda West was released from prison. She'd served her full term, 6 long, bitter months in a Nigerian correctional facility. 6 months stripped of her designer clothes, her luxury lifestyle, her dignity. 6 months of being just another inmate, sleeping on hard bunks, eating terrible food, surrounded by women who showed her absolutely no mercy for being the big madam who had tried to kill a pregnant woman. 6 months of pure, concentrated rage festering inside her, like a wound that refused to heal. When she finally walked out through those prison gates, Amanda West was no longer the polished, sophisticated woman who had once commanded respect in boardrooms. She was something darker now, something harder, something dangerous. She emerged thinner. Prison food had melted away her curves. Her skin, once pampered with expensive creams and spa treatments, was dull and tired. Her eyes, once bright with ambition, now burned with something cold and vicious. Hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred that consumed her every waking thought. She'd lost everything. Everything. Her high-paying job, gone. Her beautiful apartment in Ikoyi, repossessed when she couldn't pay rent from prison. Her car, sold to pay legal fees. Her reputation in Lagos corporate circles, utterly destroyed. Her friends, all of them, had abandoned her the moment the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Her family, ashamed, they'd stopped visiting after the second month. And all of it, every single loss, she blamed on two people, Peter King and Tina Ediemi. "He threw me away like rubbish," Amanda muttered to herself as she stood outside the prison gates, clutching a small plastic bag containing her few remaining possessions. Her voice was bitter as poison, sharp as broken glass. "After everything I did for him, after 7 years of working myself to the bone for that company, after loving him when no one else saw his potential, after making myself perfect for him in every single way, he threw me away like I was nothing, like garbage on the street, for her, for a common cleaner and her bastard child." The injustice of it burned in her chest like hot coals. How dare he? How dare he choose that nobody over her? That pregnant, desperate nobody who should have known her place. Amanda was staying in a single room in a rundown building in Yaba now. The kind of place with peeling paint, shared toilets down the hall, and neighbors who minded everyone's business. A place so far beneath her former status, it made her want to scream every time she climbed the dark, narrow staircase. She had no job prospects. No one in Lagos would hire her now, not with an assault and battery conviction on her record, not after the story had been in all the newspapers. Senior manager attacks pregnant cleaner. Her name was Mud. Her career was dead. Her life was in ruins. But Amanda had something more valuable than money right now, something more powerful than her former position. She had rage that burned hotter than the Lagos sun. She had time, endless, empty time, with nothing to fill it except plans for revenge. And she had absolute consuming determination to make them pay, to make them suffer the way she had suffered, to destroy them the way they had destroyed her. If she couldn't have Peter, then neither could Tina. If she couldn't have happiness, then neither would they. Amanda began her surveillance with the cold, calculating precision of a predator stalking prey. She couldn't get anywhere near Peter. He was too well protected. The CEO of Alpha King conglomerate traveled with drivers, security personnel, assistants. He lived in a luxury penthouse in Ikoyi with 24-hour security, cameras everywhere, guards at the entrance. There was no way to get close to him. But Tina? Tina was different. Tina was accessible. Tina was vulnerable. And Tina had something precious that Amanda could take away. Amanda started following Tina Adiemi with the patience of a hunter. She learned everything about her target's routine, her movements, her vulnerabilities. Every single day for weeks, Amanda watched and waited and planned. She watched Tina leave her cramped apartment in Surulere every morning at 7:30 a.m., baby Priscilla bundled in her arms. Watched her take the bus to Victoria Island, sometimes one bus, sometimes two when traffic was bad. Watched her drop the baby at Alpha King's company daycare at exactly 8:15 a.m. before heading up to her office on the 5th floor. She watched Tina work through the glass windows of the office building. This woman who had stolen everything from her, sitting at a desk that should have remained far above her station, doing work she didn't deserve to have. She watched Tina during lunch breaks, sometimes eating alone at her desk, sometimes with colleagues in the cafeteria, always looking tired but content. Disgustingly content. She watched Tina leave work at exactly 5 p.m. every single day, rushing to the daycare to pick up Priscilla by 5:30 p.m. before the late fees kicked in. And she watched Peter. Oh, how she watched Peter, her heart twisting with jealousy and rage every single time. She watched him visit Tina's apartment in Surulere 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 evenings a week. Watched him arrive carrying bags from expensive supermarkets, ShopRite, the Palms, full of groceries that Tina could never afford on her own. Watched him bring gifts wrapped in bright paper. Watched him stay for hours. One evening, Amanda followed them from a distance to Muri Okunola Park in Victoria Island. She watched from behind a tree, her fingernails digging crescents of pain into her palms, as Peter pushed 7-month-old Priscilla on the baby swings. Watch the child giggle with delight. Watch Tina's face light up with laughter. That common, ordinary face that Amanda wanted to claw at with her fingernails. She watched Peter lift Priscilla high in the air, the baby squealing with joy, then settle her on his broad shoulders like she belonged there, like she was his daughter, like they were a perfect little family taking an evening walk. They looked happy. They looked whole. They looked like everything Amanda had ever wanted and would never, ever have. After everything I sacrificed, Amanda whispered to herself, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury, her hands trembling with rage so intense it made her dizzy. After 7 years of making myself perfect for him, after working late nights and weekends, missing family outing events, giving up everything for that company, for him, and this is how he repays me? Playing happy family with her? With that woman and her bastard child? The unfairness of it made her want to set the world on fire, made her want to scream until her throat bled, made her want to hurt them the way they had hurt her. No, worse, so much worse. But Amanda was smart. Amanda was patient. She'd learned patience in those 6 months locked in a cell with nothing but time and hatred to keep her company. She would wait for the perfect opportunity, and when it came, she would strike without mercy. Amanda didn't work alone. She couldn't afford private investigators with her depleted finances, but she had other resources. She'd made connections during her time in prison. Women who knew people. Women who could get things done for the right price. Women who understood revenge. Through these dark channels, Amanda hired people to gather information. A young man who worked as an Okada driver near Tina's apartment building, willing to observe and report for 5,000 naira a week. A woman who cleaned an Alpha King's building, who could watch the daycare and report routines for 3,000 naira weekly. Money Amanda could barely afford, but revenge was worth any price. Through her network of informants, Amanda learned everything. Tina's full schedule down to the minute, Laura's name and phone number, the friend who lived with Tina, who helped with the baby, the daycare teacher's name, Mrs. Blessing, young, easily overwhelmed, often distracted by too many children and too little help. The exact time Laura would arrive to pick up Priscilla whenever Tina was running late from work, always between 5:45 and 6 p.m., rushing from her own job, apologizing profusely for being late. Amanda learned that Tina had an important quarterly review meeting scheduled for the last Tuesday of the month. The meeting always ran long, from 3 p.m. to at least 6:30 p.m. Tina couldn't leave early, couldn't pick up her precious daughter, which meant Laura would have to pick up the baby. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The Tuesday of Tina's quarterly review meeting arrived. Amanda's informant, the Okada driver, confirmed that morning by text. Both women left for work as usual. The meeting is today, 3 p.m., will last until late. Amanda spent hours preparing. She bought a wig that matched Laura's hairstyle, long, straight, black. She studied photos her informant had taken until she could mimic Laura's walk, her posture, the way she dressed. She bought designer sunglasses, large enough to hide most of her face. She practiced Laura's voice, slightly higher than her own, with that particular Yoruba accent. She dressed carefully in clothes similar to what Laura typically wore, modest, professional, but not expensive. Nothing memorable, nothing that would make the daycare teacher look twice. By 4:30 p.m., Amanda was positioned across the street from Alpha King's company daycare, watching through her sunglasses, waiting with the patience of a snake coiled to strike. At 5:30 p.m., the regular pickup time, Tina didn't appear. Still in her meeting, just as Amanda's informant had predicted. At 5:45 p.m., Amanda's phone buzzed with a text from her informant, who was watching Laura's office. Laura just left, running. She'll be there in 15 minutes. Traffic is bad. Perfect timing. Absolutely perfect. Amanda crossed the street with confident, unhurried steps. She pulled open the door to the daycare center and stepped inside. The scene was chaos, exactly as her informant had described. Mrs. Blessing, the young daycare teacher, looked absolutely overwhelmed. One child was crying loudly, tears and snot streaming down his face. Two other children were fighting over a toy truck, both screaming at each other. Another child had just vomited in the corner, probably fever, from the look of her flushed face. A fifth child was having what looked like a spectacular tantrum, throwing blocks across the room. The noise was deafening. The smell was terrible. Mrs. Blessing looked like she was on the verge of tears herself, completely out of her depth, clearly understaffed and underpaid. "Excuse me," Amanda called out pleasantly, her voice raised to be heard over the chaos, pitched slightly higher to match Laura's tone. "I'm here to pick up Priscilla Adeyemi." Mrs. Blessing looked up, relief flooding her exhausted face at seeing what she assumed was regular, reliable Laura coming to collect one of her charges. "Oh, thank God you're here," Mrs. Blessing said, trying to separate the two fighting children, while another child pulled at her skirt. Yes, Priscilla. Let me just... Where is Priscilla?" Don't worry, Amanda said smoothly, walking further into the room with comfortable familiarity, like she'd done this a dozen times before. "I know where her things are. I've picked her up before, remember? You have your hands full with these other children. Let me just grab her bag and we'll get out of your hair." "Oh, you're a lifesaver," Mrs. Blessing said gratefully, not even looking at Amanda properly as she tried to calm the crying child while another one vomited again. "Yes, her bag is on the blue hook, and she just had her bottle about 30 minutes ago, so she should be good until—" Perfect, Amanda interrupted, moving quickly now. "Don't worry. I've got everything under control." She grabbed Priscilla's small pink bag from the blue hook on the wall. She scooped up little Priscilla from where she was sitting on a playmat in the corner, peacefully playing with soft blocks, unaware that her world was about to be shattered. Priscilla, 7 months old with big curious eyes and chubby baby cheeks, looked up at Amanda's unfamiliar face and immediately sensed something was wrong. Her little face crumpled. She started to fuss, a whimpering sound that threatened to become a full cry. "Shh, Amanda cooed, but there was no warmth in her voice, no love, just cold determination. "Be quiet. We're going for a little trip, just you and me." She held the baby tightly, too tightly, and walked quickly toward the door. She pushed it open with her shoulder and stepped out into the Lagos evening, the setting sun casting long shadows across the street. She walked briskly to where she'd parked a rented car 3 blocks away, placed Priscilla in a car seat she'd purchased specifically for this purpose, and drove away. Gone. Vanished into the chaotic Lagos traffic like she'd never been there at all. 5 minutes later, Laura came running up the sidewalk, her bag bouncing against her hip, breathing hard from her rush to get there, already rehearsing her apologies for being late. She pushed open the daycare door, slightly out of breath, ready with her explanations. "I'm so sorry I'm late," Laura called out, her voice apologetic. "Traffic was absolutely terrible. Third Mainland Bridge was packed. I'm here for Priscilla." Mrs. Blessing looked up from where she was finally getting the chaos under control, confusion crossing her tired face. "Oh, you just missed yourself," Ms. Blessing said, with a weary smile wiping her forehead. "You were just here about 5 minutes ago. You already picked up Priscilla." Laura's entire body went cold. Ice flooded her veins. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Her heart stopped beating for one terrible, endless second. "What?" Laura whispered, her voice barely audible, her throat suddenly too tight to breathe. "What did you just say?" "Priscilla," Mrs. Blessing repeated, still not understanding, still thinking this was some kind of confusion. "You picked her up already. Just a few minutes ago. Remember? You said you knew where her bag was? You grabbed it from the blue hook? I'm Laura, Laura screamed, her voice rising to a pitch of pure primal terror that made all the children stop what they were doing and stare. I'm Laura, I just got here right now. Who the hell did you give that baby to? The color drained completely from Mrs. Blessing's face. Her eyes went wide with absolute horror as understanding crashed over her like a tidal wave, drowning her in the terrible reality of what she'd done. Oh my God, Mrs. Blessing whispered, her hand flying to her mouth, her whole body beginning to shake. Oh my God, no, 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 no. Who did you give her to? Laura demanded, lunging forward and grabbing the teacher's shoulders, shaking her desperately. Who? What did she look like? A woman, she said. She said she was Laura. She was dressed like you sometimes dress. She had sunglasses. She said she'd picked Priscilla up before. The children were all crying and screaming, and I didn't check the photo Tina sent. I didn't verify properly. Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Laura's hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial her phone. She pressed Tina's number with trembling fingers, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode from her chest. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Come on, pick up, Laura whispered desperately, tears already streaming down her face. Finally, Tina answered. Her voice was professional and slightly distracted, clearly still in the middle of her important quarterly review meeting. Hello? Laura, I'm still in the meeting. We're almost done. Did you get Priscilla okay? Is everything all right? Is she… Tina! Laura sobbed, her voice breaking completely, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Tina! Someone took her! Someone took Priscilla! She's gone! Our baby is gone! There was a horrible, endless moment of silence on the other end. Then the sound of Tina's phone clattering to the boardroom floor. Then screaming. Soul-destroying screaming that would haunt everyone in that boardroom for the rest of their lives. Thank you for watching this episode, besties. What is the fate of little Priscilla? What happens next? Find out in the next episode. Type next episode in the comments, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family.